our next batter up, Terrence Bolden.
Well, good morning, Julie, and thank you for welcoming me and being a great host this morning. I also want to thank Peter for all the work that he does every year and for being gracious enough to invite me to share with you guys this morning. Again, my name is Terrence Bolden. I head up a group called StudPack Manufacturing USA. It's an agri-tech solution basically focused on engineering and huge technological advancements by converting shipping containers to aquaponic, hydroponic, and aquacultural farms. I'm going to focus on the hydroponic farming solution this morning and talk a little bit about that. Particularly with what we did in the United Arab Emirates. Personally, I grew up on a large farm with my dad and his 9 brothers farming thousands of acres of land in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s until we had the farms corporatized and farmers were being paid not to farm anymore, and family farms were disrupted during the Carter administration, as we know. That a day is kind of past in terms of how we manage food supply across the globe. So global food security, looking at sustainability, is now a demand on the menu of what we must do globally in order to satisfy food supply and challenges related to what I think is the holy grail of how we deal with agri-tech solutions and food supply. That is energy, water, and the actual food itself, how we grow it and manage it. So the question right now is, given the situation across the globe with all the food challenges we have, the World Food Program, the United Nations, other groups telling us all of the impending global calamity that could ensue if we don't solve these food challenges. Currently, we have hunger, off the rails throughout the world and given pockets and places around the world. And how we solve these food challenges will determine what kind of future, we have as people across the globe. And so the big question is, how do we mass distribute, go to scale, and make food affordable to the masses of the population around the world who need food? The answer is pretty much, and it's kind of difficult to follow Flavio, Stephanie, and Daniel, because they've taken a lot of the data and already made it available to you. So I won't go through a lot of that, but it is disruption and decentralization of how we approach solving the food demand on the globe. So I'm going to focus on the agri-tech solution that I talked about that we came up in the United Arab Emirates. In 2009, I moved to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And I went there to actually solve another challenge that we had with the ocean energy system for ocean energy. But after getting there, a number of the big problems that were on the horizon had to do with the fact that the United Arab Emirates imports 90% of their food. It can grow very little in the desert, as you could imagine. Sand and salt water is not a good remedy for growing food. However, there are some greenhouses, some other things that they've been doing there with local farming, but nothing to go to scale. While I was there in 2013, I met up with a group. We formed a partnership and started something called StudPack. StudPack is an advanced farming and engineering solution that we take shipping containers, retrofit them with the technology that's needed, grow lights and the like, to grow food inside of shipping containers. So that's the solution I'll be talking about. Now, before I get into it, we would be remiss to talk about the vision we have is basically to take the intersection of food sustainability, futuristic agriculture, and empowering local farmers to become the food chain and supply network when you connect them across the globe. And so we think by doing that, you can solve the global food challenge and create sustainable markets and organizations who can then meet the demand for the challenge that we see. So the technology and a few project snaps is what I'm going to talk about. When we look at the challenges of the century, whether we're talking about the Middle East and North Africa, over 40 million people, about half that population are in need of humanitarian assistance, and a big part of that is food. In Central Asia, more than 850 individuals in the world face malnutrition. Across the continent of Africa, if we look at it, over 41 million people in Southern Africa are going to be affected by drought over the coming years. And then as we look into South Asia, we have another 63 million children who are stunted, not able to grow to their full height because of food and anemic, lack of nutrition and anemic problems. In East Asia, problem is almost just as bad, with about 70% of the world's poor and 24% of the world's undernourished. So our solution, in a small way, is to take these portable containers that can be moved from place to place, that are shipping containers, and retrofit them in a small footprint where we can grow crops at a large scale. So whether that's the portable hydroponic container, we can grow berries, strawberries, lettuce, tomatoes, peppers, all the food to table top solutions that you need for sustaining life. Even fodder and barley for animals. So this is a solution that year round you can grow in 3 cycles rather than 1. The technology has controlled temperature, where you can use your obviously your app from your phone to control everything that's going on inside that container. So it's automated with a low water requirement of less than 5 gallons of water per day. That we can even have an osmosis, the reverse osmosis system to desalinate water for that small amount of water that's tied to our structure and setup. So whether we're looking at conventional farming and comparing that to evaporated cooled greenhouses or our containers, crop cycles, in conventional farming is about 2 cycles per year. Cooled greenhouses is about 6 to 8. In our containers is 12. So we have year round, which you cannot do with conventional farming, of course. And with evaporated greenhouse, it depends on the various parameters that you apply to that solution. But with our containers, yes, you do grow year round. You do have guaranteed production to a great degree, whereas there's about 8 to 9 tons of lettuce that can be produced in a yield per acre with conventional farming, about 213 tons of lettuce with greenhouses. We're somewhere between the 500 to 700 tons of lettuce per acre, just by assuming a 1-layer system laid out per acre. So these kind of numbers lead to a solution that's scalable, affordable, and can be mass distributed and be mobilely transferred from community to community. In the UAE, whether that is, scaling that to distribute throughout the entire region, the Gulf cooperative countries, which would be Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Oman, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. That is now the focus of the government. We built these systems, built a business over there, offloaded and sold it to the farming co-op there, which is basically controlled by the government. And now they're going to scale in a massive way, where we have multiple layers of solutions, from greenhouse solutions to these containers, obviously, and growing in environments that when I first got there in 2009, would not consider. So if we look at the market size, the total market size in the US is about 20 billion for from the healthcare analytics source as it relates to a farm to table type food, not agriculture in general, just farm to table. The initial target market for us is about 1.4 billion, and early market penetration is about 50 million. These solutions also provide us the opportunity to create growing machines inside your home that looks just like a refrigerator with open glass. And we control with the same technology with grow lights, temperature controls, misting of water, and controlling it from your app on your phone, where you can grow certain foods like lettuce and others inside your home. By modernly retrofitting the homes, you can carve out a space that where you grow your own food even in your own home. And we are selling those, by the way. So technology itself is very advanced. You can see the plants sprouting from seeds or growing minute by minute or day by day on your phone, and you don't have to open the container except to clean at times once you finish the growing cycle or the harvest, unless there's something that goes wrong. And so this is a huge solution. We believe works from farm to table in communities that are food desert driven. At the moment, we know we have a huge problem in the United States with food deserts that lead to massive healthcare costs, that also impacts a lack of human capital due to healthcare challenges. The estimates are in the billions of money that we losing each year because of malnutrition and nourished communities in the United States. But whether we're doing these in vertical farming counters in the back of your yard, or a full-scale set of containers where we can stack them 3 high and securely fasten them into place, or going to a full-scale farm with farmers. We're working with co-ops and currently engaging the Arkansas Farm Bureau that has 300,000 clients, and leading on over into the American Farm Bureau, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and rural agriculture. As you know, underneath the Sustainability Act, the CARES Act, and the Sustainability section, there's a huge amount of money being led toward these kinds of solutions, and we plan to be a part of that. Lastly, the animal biowaste solution portion of our systems. In the UAE, lamb, goat meat is a huge part of the diet there. So we were growing and herding animals on scaled platforms where the waste was collected and converted to bio waste for the fodder that we were feeding the animals. We were then growing through the containers. So it's a beautiful solution, end to end, a 360-degree integrated solution where water is usage is very low. We use solar mainly for our energy solution. It takes very little, a small amount of solar energy to produce and manage the cooling and heating in winter for these containers. And then obviously in situations and climates where that's not possible, we use batteries and backup generators to ensure that should there be a power failure with the solar panels, we can then back that up. So overall, in summary, what we're talking about is container farming, where you take the holy grail of water, energy, and food, scale the cost, and then by example, you can create one 40 by 40 foot, 8.5 by foot container can produce over 180,000 heads of lettuce or packages of lettuce per year. And this gives us the opportunity to really show that at anywhere between $65,000 to $90,000 per container today, fit out and fully ready to go, you can basically turn over the money in that container within 1 year. So in essence, my name is Terrence Bolden. We believe the future of agriculture is now with these agri-tech solutions that are available. Everything from our new blockchain systems that manage the data and the analytics for growing this food, to the integration of digital infrastructures and technology that many people before me had talked about, to how we scale costs and invest into these solutions. I think the time is right, and we've reached that moment where we have the power within our hands that Peter was talking about when he opened this conference, to solve some of the biggest problems on the planet over the next 10 years. Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to present, and I'm ready to take questions if you have them.
Thanks so much, Terrence. And I'm glad you addressed, of course, I was going to ask you about the energy that's powering this. So thanks for sharing about your use of solar. I had a question that kind of dovetails with a question that just came in on the feed. I imagine there are many other advantages to containers versus greenhouse structures. I'm wondering though, if one of them is, I'm imagining possibly job creation, the use of energy, and I'm wondering what's the cost competitiveness between other greenhouse structures and your containers.
Okay, good question. One of these containers can be maintained by an individual in about 2.5 hours per day. So on average, 3 to 4 containers can be managed by an individual. That's a job creation solution that we created for a manufacturing plant just 75 miles below Tampa. It calls for a creation of about 75 jobs over the first 3 years, including engineers and the technicians and folks who will be doing them highly skilled labor. These are high skilled jobs that pay anywhere between $15 to $35 an hour, or upwards into $100,000+ per year for the engineers, obviously. So it makes a lot of sense in that area. In terms of competitiveness, when we're talking about,
My suggested edits are in, period. Great job! Exclamation point.
okay, in terms of talking about competitiveness, there's almost no comparison when we start talking about the yield per acre and the cost of these containers retrofitted to large-scale greenhouses and other forms. And we're not against those. We actually designed those, by the way, greenhouses and indoor growing solutions. However, for co-op farming, where you're actually bringing many local farmers together and they can offload various farm-to-table type foods, where different farmers are growing different things in a local area, and they bring those to a traditional farm market, fresh vegetable market, and sell those in the local community, you have a second compounded effect of jobs that are created and sales that stay and revenue that stays in the local market. So all around, we're talking about comparisons to, grow houses, greenhouses. There are different purposes and different solutions, obviously. In some cases, you need a large scale grow house, okay? Or you need an indoor farming solution or greenhouse. However, for farm to table, basic foods, lettuce, tomatoes, peppers, sprouts, other forms of spices, and then barley and fodder, no, I think we'll beat those hands down any day of the week.
Wow. And it is important to keep repeating that there is no one silver bullet for these
Yeah.
issues. We need
No,
so
and,
many.
and Julie, to your point, our goal is to create a cooperative effect between the various technologies and those businesses out there who are providing these solutions, because nobody, one, off solution or vertical solution amongst the different verticals of businesses that are out there providing agri-tech solutions can feed the world. The demand is too big. So we need to work together, create those local co-ops and groups and associations that we can engage our local officials and supporters and investors to see the market as a whole. And we work together to bring that solution to the table.
Absolutely. We just have a little over a minute left, but two things. One, can you speak to how Raluca has asked how the energy required it compares to containers versus warehouses, and you just touched on governments. I'm curious about how local, state governments might be working with you.
Yeah. First of all, it's a very low output, somewhere between the 6 to 8 panels max per container. Or if you have a container farm where we're doing 20, 30 containers, we build a dual or a double container technology unit to manage all the containers' energy requirements. And so it's very low output. I mean, and you're talking about, as it relates to grid or battery backed or generator backed and dirty fuels. There obviously we're talking about solar here in terms of sustainability. There's almost no comparison. I mean, the numbers I'm willing to share with anyone. I have a a deck available and some key data that we can provide on all of that. But it's really very minuscule, just like the water at 5 gallons per day. It's a very low, output of kilowatts per hour of energy for the solar panels.
Wow, that's great. So maybe you can jump in the chat and share some of that information.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
now quickly, your question about local governments. This is important. In the current within the current administration's CARES Act is a huge, and this I do want to speak to minority farmers, and there's a huge opportunity. Raphael Warnock fought for about $5 billion to be put into the bill that passed. That really goes toward closing some of the gaps that we see with local family farms, especially with minority farmers who want to get in the game and heal some of the past issues that are out there financially and work with the SBA, the USDA, and the rural farming entities. So there is a huge amount of opportunity there. There's a lot of templates for how this can be done out of California. As we see the almond trees being cut and going away, a lot of that's happening with avocado trees, places like Florida, and citrus fruits, by the way, are waning in the state of Florida. We really have a big problem here. So I think there's a lot of discussion around how we can use some of this agri-tech and these solutions to kind of fix some of those problems in agricultural states like Florida, California, and others.
Great. Thank you so much, Terrence. Obviously, we could continue talking for so long, but thank you again for joining us today.